Hi, I am Luciana Zaina from Brazil, and I am here to present our paper entitled How Developers Feel About Tools, an investigation on software startup professionals' experience with the virtual kanban boards. Let's see what about is our paper. First, what was our motivation? Why we focus on software startups, professionals, and virtual Kanban boards? There are many different startups, but software startups are the ones that produce software or make intensely use of software in their daily activities. These software startups usually operate in an environment with scarce of financial and human resources. And in addition, professionals in these companies usually has little experience. From the point of view of virtual Kanban boards, we notice and the literature shows us that the Kanban board is the central tool that the startups use to manage their work, because from this tool the professionals can visualize the workflow and can have a better communication about what the teams should do and how they can collaborate to solve or to do some activities. And based on these 2 points, we developed our work. Our aim was to investigate how do software startups professional experience the use of virtual Kanban boards in their daily activities. And how did we do our work? We carried out interviews with 10 professionals that work in Brazilian software startups. And what about is this presentation? In this presentation, we will discuss the experience that these professionals had when they interact with the virtual Kanban tools. Especially, we want to focus on the lenses of the professionals' feeling about the use of this tool. And we also will present a set of 8 recommendations that can support the professionals of software startups to better use the benefits that the Kanban board tool can provide to their work. So now I will present about our data collection and our data analysis. First, we developed our instrument for data collection, and our instrument was based in 3 different concepts. The first concept is the developer experience framework. Developer experience is a fundamental that brings the conception of user experience to the world of the software development. In this framework, as we see here in this picture, we have 3 dimensions, that is the cognition, the connection, and the affect. And each of these dimensions have some subfactors that is represented by the words here. In this framework, the cognition dimension consists in aspects that affect the developer perception about the development infrastructure and is related with the platforms they use, the process, the skills, the procedure. When we go to the connection dimension, this dimension refers to the value that the developers see in their contribution to their own work and to the work to the team. It's related to the plans, the goals, the intention, motivation related to their contribution with the work. And the affect dimension is focused on the feelings that developers have about their work and is related to the social feelings, the respect they have, the relation with the teams, and the other aspects, important aspects. Besides the developer experience framework, another conception that we use in our project, that we use here to construct our instrument, is the work of Paternoster, where the author pinpoints some software startup characteristic that is topics that can describe what it's what we can find when you look at the work in software startups. So here we have lack of resources, innovation, time pressure, low experience, small teams, flat organization, and others. And the third conception that we use it is about the virtual Kanban boards, of course, because our work is about this. So we use some literature to see what is the elements that compose the virtual Kanban boards and the features that we can find in these boards. Based on these three fundamentals, we develop our instrument, which contains 26 questions, where the question 1 to 12 questions, is about the participants in the startup's profile, and the other questions is about the work with virtual Kanban board. These other questions, we constructed this question based, of course, on the literature, and we mapped these questions to the dimensions of the DX framework. So here we can see that we have some questions that is related to not only one dimension, but more than one dimension. For instance, the question 15, we see that is related with the cognition and with the affect dimensions. But how we conduct our data collection? First, I want to say that our study was approved by the ethical committee of our university. Our data collection was conducted with 10 professionals from 6 different startups in Brazil, and our data collection resulted in around 7 hours of video records. Our data analysis was composed by 4 steps, where the first step was the transcription of the interviews to text that was conducted by the research 1. All the researchers involved in the data analysis were the authors of this paper. After the transcription, we proceeded with the close coding of the answers that we collected. In this step, we use our coding activity was supported by the DX framework, where the researcher 1 assigned the codes, which is the codes that we used. We used the subfactors of each dimension to code our data, and we can identify what kind of cognition factors that the participants speeches about their work with Kanban. After this first sub-step, in the next, the researcher 2 reviewed all the codes and complete some codes that he considered that need to be more explained. After that, researcher 3 and researcher 4 revised again all the assignments and refined the results. In the third step, we conducted a critical discussion with the participation of all the authors. When we discuss our finds, we summarize our finds, and we made the relation of our finds with the startup's characteristics. Based on this relation, we could elaborate 8 recommendations. These 8 recommendations I will present in this presentation. I will show in this presentation, but these recommendations are make a relation between our finds and the startup's characteristics. As we conduct a qualitative study, we have many different discussions in our paper with quotations illustrating our discussion. But here I will present a positive and a negative finding that we could extract from our data. And these results are split, are divided, are presented by the X dimensions. First, the cognition dimensions, where we answer how professionals perceive the development infrastructure. We see from our data that the Kanban board generates a history of the activities. And this is very important for the startups because this kind of history facilitates the onboarding of new members to the project. And this is very common in startups. We often have some rotation of different people in the project. As a negative point, the participants reported us the lack of standardization in the organization of the board elements. They told us that this lack of standardization can make sometimes the information more confused. From the connection perspective, we answer how professionals see the value of their contribution. As a positive aspect, we could see that everyone on the team can manage and update the board. And this ability, this possibility, transmits for them the sense of all being responsible for the work. And as a negative point, we have the lack of training. So as the professional has not much knowledge about the use of the boards, this can cause the sense of they are not using all the benefits that the board provided, so they have the perception of low performance. From the active dimension, we answer how professionals feel about their work. And in the positive aspect, we see that professionals feel confident in selecting the task they want to work on because the board informs in a transparent way the project workflow, and he can see the dimensions or what is the demand is to do some kind of activity. From the negative aspect, the professionals reported us some difficulties in understanding the board sometimes, especially because sometimes people have had an excessive amount of information. And when they cannot really understand, or when he see an excessive of information, this can cause some frustration. As I mentioned before, we elaborate a set of 8 recommendations. These recommendations are related to the X dimensions. What I mean is that these recommendations have a relationship with human aspects that affect the use of the Kanban and the professionals working. Here we have Sankey diagram that show the relation of the recommendations and the X dimension. As I don't have much time to present all the recommendations, I will present only one to illustrate how we organize the recommendation. Here we have the first recommendation, where the name of the recommendation show the relation of the recommendation with some problem or some issue we found out. We have in the recommendation a contextualization where we make a relation with the issue that we found and the aspects related to the startups. And after the contextualization, we give some recommendations to mitigate the problem that we could find related to this aspect. Jump to the conclusions. We can see that in this work we discuss not only features about virtual Kanban boards, but the feelings that the use of these tools can provoke in the professionals, and we bring this discussion to the context of the startups. We understand that our work have two main contributions. For the academics, we give some insights for further studies about the context of the use of tools and the relation with the feelings of the professionals. And for the practitioners, we understand that our 8 recommendations that make a relation with human aspects and software startups characteristics can bring benefits for the application in the industrial settings. Thank you very much for your attention. I am open for any question.